I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify, who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States.
That's President-elect Joe Biden after being declared a winner in enough states to go well above 270 electoral votes. That magical 270 number is what you have to become president. And this morning we want to go to a number of different people to talk about this most interesting election, starting with the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party, Lavora Barnes. And Chairman, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure to be with you this morning, Rick.
I asked you before we went on the air if you'd gotten any sleep, and you said you had not. This has been a long campaign. Took us a few days to get the count in. Give me your take now that it appears that the former vice president has achieved the goal that he has so long looked for, becoming president of the United States.
Rick, I'll start by saying how pleased I am with the turnout here in Michigan. Michigan voters got up and got out in a big way despite a pandemic, despite obstacles to getting voted. I'm so proud of how well our voters did in making sure their voices were heard. And second, just my heart is swollen because this vice president-elect looks a little bit like my daughter. The president-elect is going to come in and save us from this COVID pandemic, lead us out of this mess that has been created by this current president. It was a good night for America and a good night for the world.
What does this mean for you as a party? What does this mean for the country going forward? I mean, we still have some questions about the Senate and what's going to happen in Georgia. But just as you look at it today, what does this mean for both you, the party here within the state, and nationally?
So nationally, obviously, Rick, you're right. The attention is going to turn to Georgia. I've already had conversations with folks who want to go to Georgia and help with those two Senate races. And I think we'll all be paying a lot of attention to what happens there. Here in Michigan, we know we still have work to do. I mean, you know me well enough to know, Rick, that I've already got a plan for what happens next. And we're going to start executing that plan because we've got more seats we want to pick up. But we are so proud of the work we did to get where we are. We flipped the Supreme Court, Rick, which is a big deal here. Elizabeth Welch is going to be a terrific justice. She's going to join Justice Mary McCormick, Bridget Mary McCormick, and it's going to be a game changer for folks here in Michigan. But we have more work to do, and we're going to keep working and keep fighting for the people of Michigan.
If you look, and I haven't gone through, and I suspect you haven't had a full chance to go through every one of these votes and look at every one of these races, it does seem that there was a fair amount of cross-ticket voting on some of these races, which always surprises me to see how people will vote one way, perhaps at the top of the ticket, and then come down and vote a different way. You've been doing this a long time. I suspect that does not surprise you.
It doesn't. Michiganders like to choose, right? They like to make their choices and they choose their candidates based on who they want to support a little bit more than they do about party. I would love it if everybody just ticked straight ticket and then went to find their nonpartisan justices and voted, but that's not the way all Michiganders vote, and we know that, which is why we as a party have conversations with voters all over the state to make sure that they know how good our candidates are, how good we are on the issues, and the importance of voting for Democrats. We have to have those conversations with voters in all 83 counties, and that's what we have done, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
So one of the things you and I talked about a lot, because there was another election, not just for president, we talked about a lot was the makeup of the state house. And I know that one of your goals has been to reach into some of those areas where you believe you can make pickups. And in fact, you did flip a couple of seats, but you had a couple of flips. So the net result is not a lot different. Was that a surprise to you?
Let me tell you, Rick, Michigan is one of the most gerrymandered states in this country. So these seats were always going to be tough for us, and we knew that. But this is our last cycle with these gerrymandered seats because of the changes the voters made in 2018. We're going to see districts that are more fair, and on a fair playing field, frankly, Rick, Democrats are going to win.
When you think about this next election cycle, and I always feel terrible in such close aftermath of the one just passed, but as you said, you've already got a plan. You're already looking forward. There'll be a lot on the line again. This will be a very big election cycle, particularly in Michigan, where you're going to have every member of the state Senate, every member of the state House, the governor, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State. I mean, there's a lot out there. Of course, all the members of Congress as well. And we don't know what the districts are going to look like yet. This is going to be, if people thought this last cycle was exciting, it certainly was. The 1 and 2 years promises to be equally so, doesn't it?
Yes, for us here in Michigan, this next cycle is going to be a big one, which is why our plans are already on the wall and we're already starting to work toward them. The folks we elected in 2018 have done a terrific job leading the state. We're so proud of this governor. Look at the election this Secretary of State just walked us through. Amazing work, and this Attorney General who just won't stop. We have a great record to run on with these folks, and we're going to make sure the voters of Michigan understand how important it is to return these women to office. We're going to pick up some seats, House and Senate. We've got a great plan here, and we're going to execute it just like we've been executing since 2017, frankly. We're going to continue those conversations we've been having in all 83 counties and win races up and down the ticket.
Politics is one thing, governance is another, and the entire body politic is maybe something quite different, because we are hearing a lot this morning about trying to come together. You heard the president-elect talked about not seeing red states and blue states, but seeing the United States. Given the enormous divisions politically in this country, and given that the vote represents that there are still people on both sides out there, in the 45 seconds or so that we have left, what is your hope for a divided country, to be brought together?
I will tell you this. I think Joe Biden is the exact president we need to lead us together as a nation and to unify us. And in order for us to right the wrongs that have happened in this nation, we have to be unified in our progress forward. And I have great hope for where this country will go and where this state will go if we come together and believe together that we can be better.
LaVora Barnes is the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party, who is still trying to catch up on sleep. Good luck on that, and thank you for bothering to be up and be with us this morning.
Thank you, Rick. It's been my pleasure. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. When we come back, another perspective, this time from an elected official who has a lot on the line in the next election. We'll talk with Senator Winnie Brinks next. To the Point. Welcome back to the Point, a special live edition, because we're still trying to dissect this election cycle. We know that President-elect Joe Biden accepted his win yesterday with the speech, and that has big ramifications for what happens next. I'm going to go to State Senator Winnie Brinks, who is with us this morning. Winnie, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Senator, we know yesterday that a group of your colleagues met in Lansing, the Oversight Committee, and they have decided to look into election regularities, if any. In fact, one of those members, Republican members, saying they don't expect to find anything. But give me your take on the reaction to this election, both from the standpoint of what it means for you as an individual, as a Democratic elected official, and also the response from some of your colleagues.
Yeah, Rick, I think you made an excellent point there. I think the reason they don't expect to find anything is because they understand that there really are no irregularities of significance here that are out of the ordinary for any big election. And so, they're looking for something for which there's no evidence. And so, what this means for us as a legislature, I would really like to see our majority Republicans focus more on solutions and on practical leadership and working together rather than obstructing, what the governor is trying to do to work on behalf of our state. And this is a new day. I think that's the takeaway for us as elected legislators. Our population really needs us to work together, and we are pretty much evenly divided in the legislature, certainly more or less, and we have divided government as a state. So it's incumbent upon us to exercise real leadership that's focused on solutions, not just try to obstruct the other party.
So in the aftermath of elections, and look, you have seen this as a member of your party. You've seen elections where your party has had great success, and you've seen elections where your party has fallen short. And so as Republicans, they're looking around at the aftermath of this election. What is their motivation to come together with that kind of cooperation? I mean, is there a message within this this vote that will somehow spur them towards that kind of cooperation of which you speak?
I think if you look at the issues that are important to people and what they're telling us when we knock on doors and when we do phone calls and things like that, healthcare, environmental pollution, things like PFAS in Kent County, those are always top of the list. And of course, right now, as we see the numbers for COVID just really increasing dramatically, I think that folks are going to expect us to come together or lives will be lost. Really, the stakes could not be higher. And we need to help our Republican colleagues understand that without working together, people in our communities will die. They will get sick. There will be long-term ramifications, not just for people's health, but also for our economy. So, if that's not a good motivation to make sure that we keep a strong economy and keep people healthy and safe, I don't know what is.
When I looked at this show this morning, and I didn't realize it, but all of my guests are women who either have or do hold office. And obviously a big step with Kamala Harris becoming the first female vice president of the United States as an elected official, as a female elected official, looking across the state government with all of the constitutional offices practically being controlled by women. What can you make of this, about the strides that women have made in elective office in a relatively short period of time?
Yeah, this is a great day for women to see somebody break that particular glass ceiling. It's just incredible to have such a charismatic and incredibly experienced and thoughtful leader as a vice president of the United States. And so I think, as all of us who have fought hard to get into these positions in our elected offices, whether that's state legislatures or Congress or the U.S. Senate, this is just a really, really inspiring moment for all of us. And I have to say, I have 3 daughters, and for them to be able to see that there really are no bounds to where you can go is really inspiring for us. So, just another wonderful political leader that we can look to for guidance, for mentoring, for advice. And I'm just really pleased to see that the American people agree that women have a place in the highest power in the land.
Senator Brinks, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure.
When we come back, another look at this election from somebody who knows a little bit about elections, the former Secretary of State of Michigan, Terry Lynn Land. Next, To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. This morning we are talking with a number of people around the state about the results of the election of 2020. As you probably know by now, President-elect Joe Biden made his acceptance speech, or his victory speech, yesterday, and we've been talking with folks about that. Is our next guest ready this morning?
Yeah, I'm here.
There, yes, and I can hear you. Good morning. Former Secretary of State Terry Lynn Land is standing by with us now, and I want to start, if we can talk about this election cycle. And let me stop right here. Are you getting an echo there? I'm afraid that's going to be very disconcerting for you to try to talk with that. Well, we get some technical difficulties ironed out, and we'll try to get back to Terry Lynn Land in just a moment. One of the things I want to talk to her about is a look at the election process. Not only was she the Kent County clerk and obviously in charge of all the elections here for a number of years, but she was also for 8 years the Secretary of State. So in addition to all of the other responsibilities of the Secretary of State, the elections were no small part of that. And in fact, after the 2020 election, she became part of a national program to revamp the way we voted. I think the former Secretary of State is with us. Terry Lynn Land, can you hear me this morning?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good to talk to you, Rick.
Talking about elections in general, I want to call on your expertise as Secretary of State and former Kent County clerk. Talk to me about the election process after you've gone through an election where people have been filing lawsuits and it's taken a while to count ballots, as we knew it would take a while to count ballots. Give me your take on just the process and kind of walk me through what some of these county clerks, what the Secretary of State have been going through.
With the new rules with no reason absentee, it created a lot more absentee ballots. Unfortunately, the legislature didn't help them to be able to handle this issue. You know, when you have ballot proposals, there's a lot of unintended consequences that happen that you have to fix legislatively. They did try to make some fixes, but didn't deal with the issue of counting the ballots. There was a couple things that surprised me across the state. How low the voter turnout was in the city of Detroit. That was a little interesting to me. It was in the 50s, like 58, where the rest of the state was around 70 or 75, but yet they still had a challenge with the absentees. As you know, it's a huge operation to vote, deal with the absentee ballots in Detroit, down at Cobo and now TFC Hall. And the reality is they didn't have enough workers and enough machines to do this in a short amount of time. So what I think we ought to do is go back to that legislature and say, hey, nobody can count ballots at 4 a.m. and do it correctly. That just does not work. If we're going to have this high absentee voter turnout, we need to have a couple of days to do this. So quit at midnight, secure the ballots, start up the next day, and go at it again. But nobody can count ballots and do a good job of it at 4 a.m, Rick. It's something they need to deal with. But I say, as far as the totals go, there was a lot more folks voting out there in the rest of the state, 75% turnout. So good for them.
At work, I mean, you've watched a lot of Michigan elections over the years, and I'm always somewhat taken by getting a result at one level, for president, for example, for one party, and then down ballot, another party has particular success, you yourself, case in point. Is that just the way Michiganders vote, that they're going to go in and they're going to pick a person rather than a party?
We are an independent lot. There is no doubt about it. They vote for the person. They look at who the candidates are. They decide who they want to vote for and can best represent them and best do the job that they're elected for. That's always been the way Michigan has been. I've been here my whole life. I started out with Jerry Ford when I was 16 working on elections, and done it for a long time as Kent County Clerk. In fact, the first female Kent County Clerk. I know you talked about that earlier. And really I've seen that Michiganders like to know who their candidates are and they vote for the candidate.
So now, give me your take on what this means going forward, because obviously a new president, we don't know what the U.S. Senate is going to look like. We do know a major election's coming up in 2 years here in Michigan. What does all of this tell you, if anything, or is this standalone and now we move ahead to the next election in 2 years? And what, if anything, do you think how would this impact what could happen here in Michigan as far as cooperation over these next 2 years in more or less a lame duck session for most of the state Senate?
Well, as you know, once one day's election is done, the next election starts. So, of course, there'll be folks looking at the governor's race, the attorney general's race, secretary of state race, the legislature, the Senate, and those will start very quickly. So we'll start to see those issues pop up and what people are going to be talking about. But right now, the Republicans kept the House and the Senate, and they're going to be working with the Democrat executive. So they're going to have to work together, and that will show the voters who they would want to lead them in the next 2 years. So I think it's very critical. There's going to be a lot of changes, as mentioned, with reapportionment. That's one thing that, of course, will end up, you talk about lawsuits. I am darn sure there'll be a lawsuit after this committee gets done with their putting together their plan as far as reapportionment. They'll have the two sides on that. So more to watch, Rick, more to watch.
Yeah, and having lawsuits over reapportionment is nothing new. That happens on a pretty regular basis anyway. But I want to go back to something that you talked about I'm very interested in. And if you would, I would like you to explain a little bit about your role in the Helping Americans Vote Act, because for some people that seems like ancient history, but that fundamentally changed the way we approach a more uniform way of voting. Let's talk a little bit about what might be changed here in Michigan. You talked about getting the legislature to say, all right, here's the process. We're going to get all these absentee ballots. So you prescribed how maybe you stop at midnight and you're allowed to count for a few days or whatever it takes. What else might be done, and what can we learn from the 2000 election cycle about getting it right?
Right. That's the Help America Vote Act, HAVA, which allowed us to buy the equipment that we now use in the state of Michigan. It's an optical scan system. It's a paper ballot, so it's recountable if you need to do a hand count. I believe it's one of the best in the nation that we were able to implement, and all the clerks are on the same system. Now, they may have different vendors who they buy their machine and equipment and do their programming from, but it's all the same and the key codes match the same. It's not a interactive system, which a lot of people misunderstand. Each stands alone, and then what happens is the local clerk takes that information to the county clerk, who puts it in the system, which sends it to the state. So there is a lot of checks and balances, so people can be assured out there that happens. You have the local clerk, the county clerk, the Secretary of State, and then of course the Board of Canvassers. And that process is going to be a little more laborious this time, of course, with all the absentee ballots, but that is a second check, which has, of course, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the board. So it's a very fair process. And of course, it's open to the public, and people can see how the ballots are calculated and got to the official results, which is what we use to elect our elected officials. But I do think, like I said, we do have to look at this process, because it even though it's great for the voter, it hasn't been that great for the election officials. So there are a lot of ideas out there. I've been talking to a lot of clerks. I want to work with them to help them, because even in the city of Grand Rapids, we had a few days of counting ballots, and there were some issues there as far as making it a simple, streamlined process. But I know Joel Hondrup, the city clerk, is also looking forward to talking to the legislature to make the process better.
When you talk about dealing with all of those ballots, and when you talk about getting things to operate more smoothly, is there any way of knowing what our voting is going to look like going forward? Obviously, in the middle of a pandemic, having the ability to vote without standing in line was very attractive for a lot of people. We saw a big uptick in the primary as well, and states that have done this, other places, now ours is no reason absentee, not technically early voting, but in other places where they've done similar things, they have continued to see a large percentage of absentees. So from your experience as being the state's chief election official, is this going to become the new norm? We're going to be dealing with this even when we hopefully someday get past the pandemic?
Well, you know, there is one state that actually does all mail-in, and that's Oregon. And they've been doing it for a long time, and they got their numbers in a timely manner in Oregon. So there is ways to do this. It's just that we never, in Michigan, anticipated a pandemic, obviously. And even though we knew there'd be more absentees, still people like to vote, and there's still people that want to come to the polls and vote in person. I think that once the pandemic is past and people feel comfortable again, I don't see having this high absentee that we had. It'll be higher, there's no doubt, but not to this extent. But if we can do this process a little more simply, I think that would be more helpful. And there are some ways to do it. And I know the election officials in Michigan, who are the best as far as I'm concerned, will come together and help find a way to do that. But like I said, there's other states that have had large absentees for years, and they've done it that way, especially in Arizona, where they have a high senior population, and they've been able to handle it. So we just need to learn from others who've done it and make it that way in Michigan, so our elections will run smoothly.
About 15 seconds left. I think you know the answer to this question, but overall, even though we know there could be some challenges in a number of different places, when it comes to the state of Michigan, do you have a high degree of confidence in our election system?
Yes, we have some great clerks out there, and like I said, they do a fabulous job. It may have taken a little longer than usual. We'll hopefully work together to get that fixed. But it pretty much mirrored what a lot of us thought was going to happen here in Michigan. So I feel very confident about their election process and look forward to working with them in the future.
Terry Lynn Lamb, thank you very much for being our guest, along with State Senator Winnie Brinks and the Democratic chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party, I should say, Lavora Barnes, all getting up to be with us this morning. And thank you for watching on this special live edition. We will continue to bring you the latest developments from this election cycle, and there will be more. And of course, we'll be right back here later today on 24 Hour News.